I'm just going to get straight to the nub of the issue. Britain is a country that is occupied by evil. It is governed by villains who legislate suffering, murder and tyranny whilst they criminalise the righteous. At every step, there is the cold face of an incompetent and indifferent bureaucracy to block the path of any who seek redress. There are so many injustices piled upon injustices that it is hard to see how we could ever clean the slate and restore the balance. The entire nation is set up to destroy the hard-working at the expense of the indolent. Every day, we piss away billions of pounds of public money on grifters and scroungers who don't deserve it.
Yeah. Why should English people pay for you to have a house?
Maybe they give me house, they give me anything I can need, they give me.
Just give it?
Yeah.
Why?
The people who rightfully earned that money are scorned, and their victimizers are taken under the grace of the state and coddled like infants.
This is Europa, my love. This is Europa. If you want to be strong, you can't be strong. What? No. Say that again. The Muslims are bringing the Muslims back home. And they are bringing the Muslims back home. We, by God, are sitting here at the door. We are sitting, those who will deny the door, but the sleep path with the guide. But I told them, I said, but a little more here inside it will be.
The people who are doing this to us know what they are doing. And we know what they are doing, and yet we are forced by the state to live under the fiction that this is all actually as they pretend it to be.
And when you see that the majority of the people in these boats are children, babies and women who have been...
No, they're not.
No, you have got to take... No, look, I get this is...
North of 90% of them are adult men.
Let me be... No.
Moreover, it is our country itself that is slowly but surely being taken away from us. The process of population replacement by mass migration is happening every day, steadily eroding the jurisdiction of the English people over England, and there appears to be no end in sight. Whilst we are being impoverished and dispossessed, the political class has decided to inflict upon us the wrath of their new clients, and it's only after decades of torment that they are finally, reluctantly, being forced to do something about it. The grooming gang scandal is an open wound that cannot heal because justice can never actually be granted. The fundamental problem of the gangs of mostly Pakistani Muslim men who predated on vulnerable English girls is that these are not individual crimes. They are collective crimes. However, our justice system cannot deal with this. In more than 50 towns and cities across England, gangs of Muslim men targeted their victims because they were white Christian English girls. They humiliated them for not being Muslim or not being Pakistani. We know this because the victims have told us that their victimizers informed them of this. Moreover, once the perceived sanctity of one of these young girls had been violated, she was viewed as a communal vessel for any man to use, so they were trafficked, pimped and raped by hundreds of men each. One might think that this is a scandal worthy of a national inquisition, but because the social services, the police and the local councillors are all complicit in these crimes, it has been very difficult to get anyone to even begin to address the issue.
You referred, I think, to the grooming gangs in Rochdale and in Rotherham, and it's not just in the north. It's in Telford, in Norfolk. It's happened. We've got these organised gangs, mostly of Muslim origin. I think we need to. It's a fact.
It is also a fact that a majority...
Let me finish. Thank you very much. You outrageous interruption.
Okay, let him finish and then come back in.
I'm not spreading lies.
I'm just telling you what the member of that audience are actually... They are screaming at you.
Why don't you read
that
the
girl is screaming at you.
Defenders of the grooming gangs will instead decry you as a racist or refuse inquiries, even when directly requested by a council in an area ravaged by the gangs, the Labour Minister for Safeguarding Women will flatly refuse. Eventually, it took a foreign billionaire raising hell and a lone backbench MP who started his own private inquiry that forced the Labour government to produce a report which confirmed everything the far right had said was true.
Pakistani Muslims raping working-class white underage girls. Do you not think there's an issue there?
I think there is an appalling issue with grooming when it hits any community and any age. We only ever hear you talk about Pakistani perpetrators.
Are you telling me there's no issue?
I'm telling you that you are focusing on Pakistani grooming gangs because probably you're racist.
But even then, look at what the author of Labour's report said. If good people don't look at difficult issues, bad people will, and even worse people will exploit them. The concern isn't that children are being raped by foreigners. The concern is that, after decades of sweeping these crimes under the rug, it has become apparent that people she doesn't like are going to exploit the crimes, that is, get people to vote for them so that something can be done about this horrific state of affairs. The victimization itself is not the issue. The loss of political power and legitimacy is the issue. Indeed, we can logically reverse her statement to find her true motive. If worse people wouldn't exploit it, we could just ignore the difficult issues. They don't want to deal with this problem because they themselves are the authors of it. Yesterday in Parliament we were treated to another new low in our collective quest to bring about hell on earth. Parliament voted on an amendment to the 1861 Offences Against the Person Act, which outlawed abortion, as put forward by Labour MP Tonia Antoniazzi, to decriminalise abortion up until the point of birth. And a second amendment would also render the 1967 Abortion Act obsolete. This means that women who abort their own babies when they would have been viable out of the womb will not be investigated by the police or charged with murder. Infanticide, if you do it early enough, is now legal in Britain.
I implore colleagues not to lose sight of the moral imperative here, namely vulnerable women being dragged from hospital bed to police cell on suspicion of ending their own pregnancies. This is urgent. We know multiple women are still in the system awaiting a decision, accused of breaking this law. They cannot afford to wait. We have, Madam Deputy Speaker, a once-in-a-lifetime generation, a once-in-a-generation opportunity to put an end to this in a simple and secure manner. This is the right change at the right time. I implore colleagues who want to protect women and girls and abortion services to vote for new Clause 1. Let's ensure that not a single desperate woman ever again is subject to traumatic criminal investigation at the worst moments in their lives.
This has been hailed by the corpulent den mothers as some kind of revolutionary win for women's rights and the unbounded freedom of women, even at the expense of their own children's lives.
Those who recognise that reproductive rights are the foundation of social justice know that now is the time to act. If we are not free to control what happens to our bodies, we cannot be free in the rest of our lives. And those who are playing politics with abortion play politics with equality accordingly. We should not tolerate the interference of the Vice President in any other matter of human rights, but he's attacked our buffer zones. Only new Clause 20 would give them that human rights footing. We would not ask a woman to carry to term a baby that would die at birth. But again, there are people in this place who call our abortion laws ludicrous and advocate for reduction in the time limit, putting a woman's health secondary. That would not happen under a human rights frame. And there is an important point now that those of us who care about these rights need to act now and tonight. Because with less than half of all young men in this country under 40 believing abortion should be legal in most cases, those who feel content that abortion is a settled matter and cannot be weaponised in our politics need to listen to the drumbeat that is already banging loudly in this country.
The public did not want this. A 2023 YouGov poll showed that only 6% of the public were in favour of extending the time frame for abortion, which in Britain is very permissive anyway when you compare it to the rest of, say, Europe. And this is compared to a quarter of the public who thought that it ought to be more restrictive. But it doesn't stop there. Even now, there is an assisted dying bill that's working its way through the system, which will give the NHS the ability to implement a Canada-style MAID system. The state is going to give itself the authority to murder people if those people can be persuaded that, in fact, they ought to die. It's only just occurred to them that they ought perhaps to prevent doctors from allowing children to choose this. I imagine that they have fresh memories of what the Tavistock Clinic's affirmative model of care did to ruin the lives of many teenagers, denying them the future they deserved by feeding into their insecurities or even their own mental illnesses. The point being, they are going to create horrible, irreversible consequences for the people unlucky enough to get sucked into their system, and there is nothing that we can do in the short term to stop it. The people at the helm of our country are immoral. They are creating a system in which virtue is punished and vice is rewarded, a system by which the innocent will suffer and the guilty will prosper. This is a very dark time for our country, and it is going to be a long time until we can see light on the other side. If you want to know what ideology has brought us to this place, I have done a documentary called The Death of Man that is available now on lotuseast.com. I will leave a link in the description. It's about an hour long, and it is the product of an unbelievable amount of work. And honestly, I think that the prophecy that I'm making with this is coming to pass already. And moreover, I'm not sure that we have any good way out of it.